Hey everybody, my name is Tony Jones. You are tuned in to The Coalition, where we discuss all sides of national, regional, and local news, talk, politics, and current events. With me, as always, is the PO taxpayer. Good evening.
Good evening, spreading fear, chaos, and loathing throughout the land.
Unfortunately, Christine is not with us I just made it sound like she's dead. She's not, in fact, dead. She's not with us in studio this evening.
She's with us spiritually. And Christine, if you're listening, we offer to walk on your back.
I will personally walk on your back to make it feel better. You just let me know.
All the pain will end.
But we do have subbing for Christine. Dave is here once again.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Dave Fisher, recently candidate for Woonsocket mayor, who is joining us as what we call a member of the special teams on the coalition, bringing us bleeding-edge investigative reporting.
Should we have a special bus for our special team?
I think so, but in fact, maybe we can make this sports analogy night, because I think he's going to kick it out of the park. I think he's kicking into a steady wind, but if all hands are put together and they're on together in the same move forward, I think we can do something today.
I have no idea what you just said.
Neither do I, but I just made it up.
There's a rare bout of positivity there from PO taxpayer.
No. But Tony, I got hate mail again this week.
What I was thinking, I mentioned this last night on the Tony Jones show, the fact that, PO, you and I are job creators because we could hire a full-time person to host our hate mail. Oh. It's rolling in.
Hate mail. We've got hate mail. I was accused this week, and again, if I had any dignity, pride, or any sense of spirituality left, I'd be hurt. I was accused this week of being a coward, of being what's that word they use on the internet for people who just stalk people around?
A troll?
I was a troll. All right, and I engaged in cheap insults, and to which my response is, if you saw my therapy bill, there's nothing cheap about it. Tony, they also seem to think there's a movement afoot.
What was this hate mail in regards to?
Well, it would appear that one of the candidates for mayor in this fine city of Providence has got one of the largest accumulations of health code violations in his catering business in Rhode Island history. And I merely pointed out that, I don't know, if I don't pay a property tax bill, my license is suspended, I'm subject to arrest and brought out of the penal colony. And I thought there was a little bit of hypocrisy in that. This is the same gentleman, by the way, who owes hundreds of thousands of dollars to one of the city loan funds over a period
PDP, right?
Right, over a period of 20 years, yet at the same time is able to loan his campaign hundreds of thousands of dollars, as we say in the Blackstone Valley. Go figure. I find that mildly offensive.
Well, given that our entire society is based on how much debt you sit on top of,
okay,
that's really a measure of your stature in our society these days, isn't it?
You don't
really want to get rid of that because, hey, that puts you at the top of the heap.
Right. So what you're saying is by stiffing, they're engaged in a long-term payment plan. By stiffing the city of Providence, you're actually doing your patriotic duty?
Well, in a credit-based society, how else can you look at it?
Right.
It's all about your FICA score, right?
Right. Interestingly enough, one of the people who takes continual offense to, I guess, my very existence,
your wife. All right, there we go.
Cymbal crash. We were a higher quality radio station. We had the cymbal crash. Took offense to that. Now, he happens to be married to a Providence city councilwoman, so I can't imagine there's any conflict of interest there. It was also disclosed this week that the city of Providence has got its own slush fund that they hand out indiscriminately with no legislative approval, no review, no follow-up to any one of the number of organizations that might have curried favor with any one of the council people.
I thought that was called the general fund.
No, this is like the super secret double probation general fund in the city of Providence. So as our media colleague Dan York likes to call the Rhode Island General Assembly Fund, the Rub and Tug Fund. What I don't know. Maybe we could send it out to our listeners to create a really evocative term for what the city of Providence councilmen think they're calling, just kind of a stroke a check fund. It's astonishing, and yet they're outraged at us.
So it's basically like not so petty cash.
No, I mean we're talking again in thousands of dollars here. They a couple $1,000s a year, a couple $1,000. It could add up to real money after a while.
How about the Oneyville System Brown Bag Fund?
All the way, baby, all the way. So rather, there seems to be this prevalent undercurrent in social media here in Rhode Island. Shoot the messenger.
Yeah.
As opposed to attack the message.
Yeah.
Don't take offense at any...
I certainly got my share of it on the campaign trail. I mean, all the nuts came out that were just, here I was trying to propose some solutions, and it was just, they rejected out of hand because, you're the new guy, you're the new voice, you're something other than the pabulum that they've been spoon-fed for the last 50 years by either party.
So, in other words,
there's kind of an interesting take on this whole health code violation things with we don't want to mention the candidate's name because then we have to mention other candidates' names too. So one of the differences in Rhode Island with our Department of Health, and a lot of people don't really realize this, is we have no Rhode Island Code of Health.
Interesting.
Our Department of Health simply enforces federal guidelines. That's all they do, basically. So we have no state-specific health code in Rhode Island. It's merely, they are the enforcement arm of the federal government, basically, at that point. And yet, we have, that's a state-funded institution. Mm-hmm. So... I wouldn't mind it if we had our own code and the state was paying to enforce our own code. But if we're here as a state, as a taxpayers being forced to keep up this organization, and we're simply enforcing federal guidelines, where's the federal help? Where's that money coming in when we need to hire more inspectors? And we do need to hire more inspectors. And 16 health code violations is a ridiculous amount, because I worked for 20 years in the restaurant business. Mm-hmm. And I think the only time I ever saw a health inspector in a restaurant was when the restaurant was just about to open, because you got to go through and jump through all the hoops and get all your T's crossed and your I's dotted. Other than that, I think maybe once or twice in 20 years did I see like a spot inspection of a restaurant. A surprise. Here comes the health inspector walking through, and that has a lot to do with the fact the way we staff our Department of Health. So we have statewide health inspectors. So I think there are 8 or 9 health inspectors for the whole state right now. Frankly, with the amount of just food institutions in Providence alone,
right,
you could probably put 8 inspectors to work just in Providence. And this is how most other states do it. For instance, in Massachusetts, the state has their state Department of Health, but the state also funds a position in each city and town for a health inspector. In the case of Boston, I think there are 11 or 12 health inspectors that work within the city, right, for your hospitals, your restaurants, any type of public place that's selling any kind of consumables, basically. So it's kind of, I understand we're a small state here in Rhode Island, but if you really wanted to be effective in enforcing the health codes, the better way to do it would be to have each city and town have their own health inspector, because then they would know. The State Department of Health, if a new restaurant opens up in Warren or something's going on over there, they don't know immediately. If you have some local boots on the ground, the guy's driving by and he goes, "Oh, there's a new restaurant opening there. I'll have to put that on my list to get over there and make sure that they have their inspections and do all those kind of things."
Well, even as a libertarian, we will all agree that there are certain basic functions of government that are expected in exchange for the tax dollar. Mm-hmm. And for all of those who think this is trivial, we need only go back 2 years and realize that people have died in this state,
sure,
as a result of restaurant and bakery, in the last case, health infractions,
Yeah.
and rather egregious ones at that.
Yep.
As were the ones indicated against Mr. Solomon. I'm sorry, didn't say that. And so it's extremely relevant. We have a state government that's overpopulated with communication consultants, graphic artists, middle management types. Yet when it comes to, like you call it, boots on the ground, people actually doing the work that government should be responsible for, we are incredibly short-sighted.
Yeah, the same thing holds true over at DEM for the DEM Enforcement Division. If you hired 3 more enforcement officers for DEM, I can guarantee you that they would make their pay back and then some within a year with the violations that they can go up. But as it stands right now, there's no proactive enforcement of those laws, of those regulations. It's just, well, we wait until we get a complaint, basically, then we go out and investigate it. And when it comes to environmental stuff like that or health code violations, by the time you get the complaint, it's too late.
Yeah, people have
the
died,
damage
people
is
are
done.
sick.
Exactly.
Environments are ruined.
Yeah.
We could probably do a full show on the disgusting things we've seen working in restaurants.
We could probably do a whole 10 years of shows.
For instance, one of my favorites of a complaining customer was the baked potato hacky sack. So if they sent their potato back, I wasn't involved in this personally, of course.
Of course not.
We'd take the baked potato outside, play hacky sack with it, and then reserve it to said customer.
Yeah, a lot of those stories float around, but personally, I don't think I've ever seen anybody intentionally mishandle somebody's food just because they were being a pain in the butt kind of customer. The what goes on in the restaurant industry should very well stay in the restaurant industry, because most of you folks out there in the listening audience probably would go out to eat a hell of a lot less.
My hate mail was minuscule compared to yours, P.O., because allegedly, which I guess is not allegedly because I think it really did happen, when we had Mr. Steinhaus here, I referred to Christine Ferguson, who runs the alleged healthcare exchange, as a very handsome woman, which I don't think is that offensive, by the way. And some people were very upset by that. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, is that...
Well, I think what I'd more...
Well, what do we take a picture and put it up on Hot or Not? Or
okay.
By the way,
how do we get the public input on that? I mean, let's have a frame of reference.
it's not like I'm up in some ivory tower. P.O., you and I on this very program jab at our appearances all the time, Peter Griffin.
Ultimate made for radio. But according to some, on that same note, we are actually one in the same person.
That's true.
What is
It's
it?
the new
It's been
conspiracy
postulated by a guest of ours, or by one of our listeners, that what?
We are, in fact, the same person.
Sort of like, as urban legend had it, that Michael and Janet Jackson were in fact the same.
I think it was whichever one had the psychic readings.
Oh, it was LaToya. I'm sorry. And to which I say, I get to be LaToya most weekends. Okay.
If we weren't so broke, we would buy a webcam for the studio here, and we'd be able to prove it. But webcams cost like $9, and that's just not in the budget.
So, Mr. Kenneth Block, if you're out there, we are two distinct people. We promise. And if you believe that one. This week, we were treated, over the past week or so, since we last met, we were treated to a host, if you will, a plethora of gubernatorial announcements, Tony, where people who are part of the ruling elite got up and spoke about their rather plebeian backgrounds. It was great to hear. We had one man, a man of the streets, who went to classical high and then went to Harvard, tell us of his humble beginnings. We had another member who, I guess equally humble, worked in a Chinese restaurant as he grew up, and then attended classical high and went to a really good school too. He got up. We were treated, obviously, in the days running up to it, to Mr. Block, Ken Block, his mandate, and I don't know. My reaction, I'm with that familiar feeling when it comes to Rhode Island politicians. I'm left wanting more. Now, in Mr. Block's defense, he would appear the only candidate truly ready for prime time, in the sense of, whether you agree with it or not, the man's got a program, and the man's got a clue, and the man deals in specifics. our
Look how far that got me.
Well, yeah, there you go. Mr. Tavares spoke euphemistically about helping the people right after he had destroyed a 50-year-old pool in the inner city and worked viciously hard to shut down another one.
Do you remember quite a few years back now when the